Hello everyone, Max here with Fiction Rant to talk to you all about plot devices, MacGuffins, and technology. Basically, any kind of tech or ability or magic or whatever in fiction that has or should have far-reaching implications for the story that they're a part of. This is a world-building thing. Also, I have a coffee link in the description if you want to support the channel. Alright, so some examples, first of all, since this is pretty broad, but I want to be clear about what I'm talking about first. So this could be anything from, there are dragons in this world. That should have implications, depending on, how common they are and all that kind of stuff. How about we talk about the Force? Here's a plot device for the Star Wars franchise, which has pretty far-reaching consequences for the people involved, but really it has a pretty limited impact on the general populace, which I think is honestly a pretty missed opportunity. So, this is a power set where people can move things with their minds and even influence the minds of others, and while these individuals, be they Jedi or Sith, end up in positions of some authority, more often than not in the stories, they're so uncommon that unless a separatist army has invaded your world, or you've managed to somehow draw the personal attention of Darth Vader himself, you probably will never actually encounter anything even Force adjacent in your entire life, leading many people to deny that it exists at all. This, I think, is a failure in world building. Don't get me wrong, I love Star Wars, but how interesting would it be if, especially during the Republic days, there was a minimum threshold of Force sensitivity needed in order to be inducted into the Jedi Academy, and anyone below that threshold was just left alone. This would mean that there's potentially millions of people out in the galaxy who have very minor talents with the Force, but even those minor talents lend them some degree of supernatural ability, be that just really good instincts for anticipating danger, associated with, Jedi who are full-fledged Jedi can see the future to a degree. So what if there's just people that have just something doesn't quite feel right and they can't really explain it? Or even just, they have really good reflexes because, again, they can slightly see the future. There could even be whole cults on more remote worlds built up because some locals witnessed a well-meaning Jedi do something amazing like, defeating some legendary beast or telekinetically lifting some rocks out of the way of a mountain pass, whatever. But then take away that Jedi, advance 1,000 years, and you've got an entire religion built up around the miracle that those people witnessed and then told and retold over generations, and the story has evolved into this whole thing about this mystical savior who saved everyone from some bestial demon. Come to think of it, stories like that probably do exist in legends, but that's pretty far beyond what I've actually read. The main takeaway from this example I'm trying to establish for all of you is that no technology or ability or anything like that exists in a vacuum. And particularly when there's extreme levels of tech or special abilities involved, there really should be wider-reaching consequences than just, some dude can defy the laws of physics, and nobody cares. It's all about good world building. My personal favorite technology to think about in this way is nanotechnology. This gets featured in sci-fi all the time. The most iconic example probably being the nanites used by the Borg, which have supernatural levels of body augmentation that they can create. Seriously, many of the physical features of the Borg are generated by nanites alone from the resources available, but they're apparently able to just generate whole devices that spring from their host body without lethally depleting the body's nutrients. I mean, sure, there's iron in people's blood and we're all carbon-based, but we kind of need that iron and carbon to survive, so turning it into a transmitter would be probably pretty bad for you. Anyway, there's a ton of more grounded applications that nanomachines can have, many of which are actually within reach of the technology that we have today. Already, there's talks of treating things like cancer by using nanomachines to deliver concentrated chemotherapy drugs directly to only cancerous cells, so that the impact on the body as a whole is minimized. This is super exciting since it would massively reduce the biggest issue with chemo, that you have to poison the patient in order to attempt to cure them, simply because the treatment is far more targeted. But what if you can operate on this kind of scale, or even better, what if you can operate on a smaller scale? What all can you do? The nanomachines that would deliver chemo drugs would probably have to be like cellular scale, so that they have limited capabilities, but they're great for delivering microdoses of specific chemicals to a body, so let's apply that to their fictional universe. What about super soldiers who carry around some number of cell-scale nanites all the time, which are then triggered when the soldier is in extreme pain to deliver a large dose of painkillers and, PCP or something directly into the bloodstream, giving that soldier a last hurrah berserker mode that just triggers if their body is significantly damaged. They'd gain increased strength and energy, along with the ability to just ignore pain so they could go after whatever took them down and hope to take them down too. Probably totally unethical, but super cool for fiction, right? Well, what if we can get down to molecular scale nanites? Well, that's where the real fun begins. If you can manually and consciously operate on that scale, the world is your oyster. In manufacturing, you could just have a metallic slurry bath with a bunch of these guys floating around and then just perfectly 3D print basically anything by just moving around the tiny bits of metal or plastic or whatever into whatever configuration you want, all on the atomic level. You could just assemble the atoms where exactly where you need them to go. Inside a body, molecular scale nanites would have a field day. At that scale, you could manually trigger hormone responses for good or evil, whatever you like, especially if they're connected to a command network that operates in real time. All right, get in a car crash, the EMTs just tap into your personal network, trigger a bunch of dopamine receptors to control the pain, no drugs needed. Want to be a junkie? Just get a hacker to jailbreak your personal network so you can just hit the dopamine button over and over and over and over and over again. No drugs required. Oh, but it gets even more fun. If you can do that in real time, you can do things like rig every election ever, since most people vote emotionally, and all you got to do is whenever that one guy is on the TV, you feel really anxious or just plain uncomfortable. Whereas when the other guy's on the TV, oh man, you feel at ease and like everything is going to be okay. Ta-da! You just rigged the vote, and everyone feels good about the fact that you did so. How about advertising? Ooh, the new iPhone 50 is on TV. I feel an instinctive need to get it because my hormones are being messed with. You then get into implications of this where people would catch on that they're being manipulated in this way. So either they'd have to give up their nanites and sacrifice any medical benefits that they provide, like rapidly knitting bone together if you happen to get a break, and actively seeking out disease cells and viruses and exterminating them so you're just never sick. You could give that up. It'd be a huge sacrifice, but hey, at least you're not being manipulated anymore. Or, just become a psychopath who just ignores your instincts all the time because you just cannot trust them. Is this impulse from you? Or is it from the nanites? You don't know. Better ignore it. Oh, but the most fun comes if these nanites can interact with nerve fibers. If they can do that, all you got to do is block the connection from the brain to the extremities, and you've just created a remote control human who, horrifyingly, is totally aware of the fact that their body is doing things that they didn't tell it to do. Talk about a Manchurian candidate. Let's move on. Let's look at the atomic scale. At that scale, the world really is your oyster. At this scale, nuclear fission and fusion can be performed manually, which means you can do just anything, particularly if you can harness the energy release of doing so. They're just, if you pull apart atoms or if you fuse two atoms together to make a heavier one, you kind of just created a nuclear detonation by releasing a ton of energy. If you can figure out a way around that little problem, then yeah, you can basically do anything. You want to just grow a skyscraper made of one single diamond out of thin air? Go ahead. Want to turn your entire house into tungsten? Do it. Atomic scale nanites would be capable of basically anything, and I can't even comprehend everything that they would allow you to do. Okay, I take it back. Subatomic nanites would allow you to do literally anything. If you can somehow operate on that scale, you can manipulate electromagnetism, and in addition to reconfiguring matter just like the atomic scale ones, you could use it to just disintegrate matter entirely into quarks and electrons. There'd be basically nothing left. But what do you all think? What else could you do with a cell, molecule, atom, or subatomic scale nanite? What are other technologies or MacGuffins that are underutilized in their respective franchises? Let me know in the comments below. Again, I have a coffee link in the description if you want to support the channel. And until next time, live long and prosper, and may the force be with you.